beginners now for a minute, or people who have some experience with grappling or interested in adding the element of the firearm or a force multiplier here. I want to let you know that in this context, going for a classic submission may not be advantageous for you. Just a few things for your consideration. One, you're probably going to be on some kind of a dangerous surface. That changes things immediately. Two, you should know there's a 56.6% chance of more than one attacker. So if you're spending a lot of time down there looking to, find a classic submission, that can put you in a really vulnerable position. Three, consider the legal ramifications. Make sure you're using the same level of force that comes against you. You take somebody to the ground and you break their arm, right? That could be construed as excessive force. We need to understand when we're using submissions, right? Using the same level of force that comes against you without going beyond that level of force. You just broke that person's arm and they were just trying to push you down. They were just trying to throw a punch at you. Now you've broken their arm. Now they've received substantial bodily harm. Or maybe you go to choke them unconscious. Be sure that you understand what the laws are in your jurisdiction when you do that, because you should know you could be charged with an aggravated assault for obstructing that person's airway or blood flow to their brain. Things for you to need to think about on that side of things if you're a classic submission grappler. On the other side of things, if you're not, you have a firearm on you. We want to make sure that, one, we're concealing that weapon. We're not going for that weapon, and we're letting them know that we have it unless we have to. And that we're not going to it, hopefully until we're in a dominant position, to make sure that we can access it safely. But as part of the decision making as you're practicing these things, we like to make sure that we're justified to do it before we do. So for example, if your adversary starts to go for your weapon, you're showing lethal intent. If you have to, now you know that's made the decision for me. Now I need to retain this, and if possible, I might have to access it and use it. Also can put somebody in a vulnerable position if they put a choke on you. Now they put a choke on you, like say a guillotine choke. That gives you an opportunity to usually transition to that weapon to use it, or a rear naked choke, or other forms of, arm triangles, other forms of submissions. Chokes oftentimes, but it can be other stuff too. It could be an arm bar. You might be in a jurisdiction that says that you're justified to use lethal force if you're reasonably faced immediately with substantial bodily harm. Not just great bodily harm or death. So now you realize they're about to break your arm. Make sure you know the laws before you do this, but I just want to point this out. This person's going to break your arm. The law says in your jurisdiction you can use lethal force to defend against substantial bodily harm, meaning where you're having some type of a protracted or sustained loss or impairment of a bodily organ or member. And you might also be able to articulate, depending on what the circumstances dictate, this person just is about to break my arm, which prevents me from being able to continue to defend myself. There's a lot of considerations that a lot of people haven't thought about on both sides, on all sides of this equation. So I want to just point some of these considerations out for you so that you can consider them, right? We're not just going to teach you kinetic skills. You have to understand the context and the strategy behind this, because it isn't going to do you a lot of good if you don't understand the strategy to either keep you safe and free from harm, or mitigate the harm or the damage, or to keep you out of jail or out of prison. These are all very important considerations that I don't think very people think about at all. We do. We think about the whole spectrum of self-defense.